know it's silly for someone from Portugal to come to Madrid and speak in English, but I would be arrested if I tried to give this presentation in Spanish. So I apologize. I kind of understand, but you don't want me talking Spanish. So.
There's no way, so. Okay.
Don't answer, sorry.
So let me introduce because he's both Web Details Director. It's a Portuguese company focused in business intelligence, and since 2 years or 3 years, it was integrated in, Web Details into Pentaho. It's last year, so he's trying to impulse the community around Pentaho.
Yes, thanks. That's a good summary. Basically, that's actually a good example of the capabilities of open source. I started Web Details about 6 years ago, when after I was fired from 4 or 5 companies that went bankrupt. It's Portugal, and decided if I was going to work for free, at least I was going to work for free for something for myself. So I started downloading some random software that I found on the internet. It was actually Pentaho, I know that now, and started working on that, started to get some projects here and there, and started to build some extensions, and someone thought that thing was actually interesting, and our company, when it got to something like 20 people, got integrated in Pentaho, and we're now part of the same thing, even though we still keep our regular activities. So I'm here to talk about analytics. It's mostly the concept of this talk. The fact that it's open source, it's why we are here, but it's irrelevant. We just believe that through open source, we can get to our goals better and faster. But that's it. We want a solution that's able to answer our needs in terms of analytics, in terms of data, and that tool, open source, closed source, has to be as good as possible. And this is actually what we are. We are a big data integration company. The term big data, everyone knows that it's marketing. It's a data integration company that aims to. Someone was asking how to put that. The first presentation that I believe George did around how to put that thing in production. Basically, what Pentaho is a platform that allows you to take all of these different concepts that we've talked about today, and we've talked about in these 3 or 4 talks about technologies that I have never heard about. So there is a lot of stuff. It's insanely complicated, and the goal is to have a platform that is able to pick whatever is available out there, put it all together, and give answers to our customers, users, depending on what we do. So that's the main point. And the fact that we are open source, it's basically because it's a model that we believe will allow us to get a better tool. And not that numbers matter a lot, but there are thousands and over 10,000 production installs using Pentaho. So this is getting pretty crazy. So this is some chart that I like to show. So EMC, which is a huge consulting company, paid, which I'm sure was a huge amount of money, to some extremely smart people that got to the conclusion that today we have much more data than we had before, and they think that in the next few years we'll have even more data. So I think they must be right. I mean, they're super smart, so I'm sure they are right. And they also envision that about 77% of data is unstructured. When we mean data is unstructured, what we're basically saying is that we look at the data and we have no idea what's there. So that's unstructured data. It's just that. the problem is that we need to have tools that allows us to be able to connect to all of this set of data that's appearing. There's a very funny Twitter account called Big Data Borat from the movie, and he basically tweeted something that big data is everything that crashes Excel. Unfortunately for us, it's getting a little bit out of scale. So now the amount of data that we have to work on a daily basis, it's getting much larger, and we need to be able to pick up the pace. There's one thing that that's also important. Everyone talks, I mean, we look at conferences, we look at analysts talking, we look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, everyone talks about big data. And also, there's also some silly comparison that says that it's like teenage sex, that everyone talks about it and no one does it, which is actually closer to the truth than most people think. But the thing is, big data is something that, as technology matures and evolves in a company, all companies will eventually get there. I don't have as much experience as some of the guys that were talking here. I think I started working, well, some people don't even call it working, but something like 10 years ago. And when I started, everyone was implementing ERPs in their companies, invoicing systems. That was 10 years ago. All of a sudden, when that started to become a standard feature, people started talking about CRMs. And then they started talking about web. So I'm absolutely sure that even though probably the vast majority of you never worked with what we call big data, we will get there because it's a natural progression in the life cycle of a project. And the reason that everyone talks about it, and I have this slide in here because this probably came from Gartner or one of the other ultra smart guys that do questions to people and make charts. They come to the conclusion that the big data analytics is a $17 billion market. That's a lot of zeros and a lot of money involved there. And this is the amount involved in this is how much people in companies are willing to spend in big data. So the value that big data brings to companies, it's way, way larger than that. So the amount of opportunity in studying everything that's around us, it's pretty big. So here's the difficulty that basically was created a couple of years back. A couple of years, it was normal for people to have a black screen with green fonts where people would type there wasn't even any mouse. People would type letters, codes, and the system worked. And it was okay to wait like 5 minutes, 10 minutes until a printer was beeping in the back and spit out a piece of paper. What changed? Well, in my opinion, mostly Google and Apple. Those two companies basically made people realize that those old systems were unacceptable. People want results fast, and they want systems to be easy to use. You saw a presentation today that from a company that they focused entirely on the user experience because it matters. It's important. But the user experience is only important if the data is there and the system works fast. So then, in order for us to be able to answer those requirements, there's a bunch of technology appearing. We've heard names today that I'm sure most of you never heard: Elasticsearch, Kibana, Zookeeper, Hadoop, Hive, Storm, Kafka. And all of them appear to answer a specific question. So what Pentaho does and what we are trying to do is give tools that basically sit in the middle of all this chaos and allow to connect the different pieces, whatever they are, and allow you to show the results in the most optimal way for people to get insights from the data. So this is basically the main concept. When we go to implement a project using Pentaho, we don't try to tell people what the best technology is. We are not in that position. There was a presentation today where it was described how to use R to get to the best algorithms, to discover the data. Someone asked, why not Python? It could be very well Python. I mean, who am I to say? I don't even know. From the beginning, I didn't understand why we have an algorithm to know if it's red wine or white wine. Until the third bottle, I can tell the difference. But the thing is, people can use whatever it's best for the specific scenario. And sometimes the best answer can be multiple technologies, or a project that we implemented yesterday using MySQL. Now, someone decided to implement that using Vertica because it's a columnar database and works best. And the next day, our boss goes to a conference and he heard about MongoDB and let's try that. So let's change everything to NoSQL. And then, damn, Hadoop. Let's change everything again. But which Hadoop? Cloudera, Hortonworks, MapR. So the goal in here is just use whatever you want, whatever people tell you, whatever is best for the job. And what we really try to be a platform that sits in the middle and is able to point to whatever changes. Because the cool thing about all of this, we speak about technology, but the cool thing is that in the end, what users want, most of the times, is a pie chart that will tell the percentage of users that bought product A, or as someone tells, if men or women spend more in clothes, like if we need a study for that. But in the end, the insights don't change. And we need the ability to be able to adapt to whatever technology is best. And Pentaho is that. I won't make, usually I do a very heavy demonstrations, very technical. I won't do that. We're on the third floor. People would start committing suicide if I did that. I will just give a very, very high level overview. Pentaho is basically two products. I won't say two products, but has two different aspects there. It's a data integration tool that's able to connect. It's a data integration tool. It's literally boxes, drag and drop, and arrows. It's not Java thingies. People can use it. It can grow wild pretty quickly if we're talking about concepts like some of the concepts that we asked today. But it's a data integration tool where we have something like Excel input or more complex things like MapReduce file input to run in a Hadoop cluster. Anyway, it's something that it's relatively sane to use for people that actually like to go outside and see daylight, things like that. And then we have a platform that allows us to serve all that content in a UI for people to consume the data. And serving that content can be things like using a pivot table, drag and drop, classical style, to the highly customized user experience screens that someone said, this is exactly what you need. And basically, this is the position that we want to do. And we do it, and the reason that I'm speaking here is that Pentaho is an open source tool. Not everything. Pentaho is over 90% of the code is open source. There are some closed source plugins, but the vast majority is open source. It's Java. It's a web application based on people can deploy in any application container, Tomcat, JBoss, but I won't go into a lot of details. But one of the most important things is that it's pluggable. We've recently launched Pentaho 5.2. And like I mentioned, we have the PDI, which is also known as Kettle. Angel did this presentation. He was using Kettle to connect to Kafka to get the results. There's a marketplace there where people can just build plugins, download from the marketplace, and you have a new connector available. The same thing for the BA server where people can have. At Web Details, we put a lot of plugins available to build dashboards, connect to data. It's basically an ecosystem where anyone can build on top of. So it's not a, it's the biggest, at least in my opinion, the biggest advantage is that it's not a closed set of capabilities. It's something that can adapt to whatever you need. So, this is the marketing slide. I don't even know what this means. So, once again, Gartner doing bar charts. They did a bunch of survey to companies that said, what do you think it's the most value? There were a bunch of people that said that I want to use what's called dark data, which just means that data that I have there that I'm not using today. I want to get more details from customers, for instance, customer surveys or LinkedIn comments or user sentiment feeds from Twitter, social media content, commercially available data. And what this thing clearly showed is that there's no one thing that's more important than the others. We need to be able to just combine all the information that's available, and that's hopefully what will bring the money. There's also one important factor in all this. Well, there's something that's clear to everyone. Everyone is doing this because hopefully they will either make more money or spend less money. So this is the entire goal of all that. And doing that by two main factors, either improving the operational capabilities or reducing costs of storing data. Because this is something extremely important. If anyone here already used Hadoop and MapReduce and all of that, the first thing, I mean, I'm not even from IT. I'm a physicist. And the first thing that I did in IT was trying to learn SQL query and MySQL and do some queries and see the data in there pretty fast, sub-seconds kind of data. I go to Hadoop, and the first thing that I see there is that the simplest query takes 7 minutes to run, and my laptop is on the ceiling spinning like crazy. So the first thing is that someone starts using Hadoop and MapReduce is that thing is awfully slow. It's extremely slow. It's not usable for the kind of use cases that most people expect from, for instance, databases. Why is then Hadoop a huge success? Money. It's much cheaper to store huge amounts of information in a technology like Hadoop than trying to pay Oracle for a cluster of 10 machines and licenses and all of that. It's the only reason. So there are a lot of companies that are going into big data projects for saving money into storing data and be able to do something with it using whatever tools available. So one of the things that we've also realized is that people don't really care about technology. I'm talking about Pentaho, and you'll see very little Pentaho screenshots. It doesn't matter, honestly. What people want is the ability to have to bring value out of the data that they have. And one of the things that we've realized is, while talking to our customers, most of them went through a very well-defined path in the life cycle of their project. So usually they all start with having the regular systems based out of regular data warehouses, and then they want to do what we've called all of these the big data blueprints, because it's clearly something that there's a common architecture behind all those. So the first one usually is data warehouse optimization. We have a regular data warehouse system. We build reports, analysis, the standard stuff out of it. But we get so much data that it gets slow, it gets too costly. So one of the main, or one of the first projects that companies go into is trying to migrate the data that is stored on the regular databases and find a better, more suited way to store that data. Can be Hadoop, can be Mongo, can be Couchbase, can be Elasticsearch, whatever. And then optimize their workflow so that they can still get the results that they need, but out of this new way of working. And then it goes, from that point on, it starts to grow into other kind of scenarios. The second one that we've identified as being extremely popular and has a lot of demand now in the large enterprises, but it's going to become more regular, is what we call the streamlined data refinery. The name is somewhat complex, but the concept is relatively simple. Imagine that we are Twitter. We want to do an analysis of data that sits on Twitter for people that come to Madrid to the Open Analytics event. It doesn't even cross anyone's mind that in order for us to do that analysis, we need to scan the entire Twitter database. So the concept that a lot of people are implementing is giving access to business people to a predefined workflow that what they will do is, for instance, the day before, at dinner time, they go into a specific dashboard, a specific form, and say, tomorrow, my day will be analyzing this Madrid/Open Analytics scenario. So they will trigger an ETL job that will populate a regular database, the regular databases, as in the ones that we ask a query and they return results fast. And people will do the analysis on their end, on that environment. What we're doing in here is making sure that we have systems in place that allow business users, analysts, like each one of us, to do our work in the technology that fits better for our needs. There is no one in this room, apart from Josh, probably, that is able to learn R to do the analysis on their data, because it just requires, well, it requires more brain cells than I have, so, but that's my problem. And then people go into the more complex systems, and the customer 360 is a very well-known term, which basically means if I'm a company that provides services to external people, I want to know everything that they do on my organization. The best example that I can give is Pentaho. I mean, we have customers that go to our website. We have customers that say good things and some that say bad things about us on Twitter or on Facebook. We have people that log customer cases. We have all the information on Salesforce. And we need a way to look at all of that so that we know if we should, for instance, knock on a customer's door or just go and have a beer and return next month because he's not very happy at that time. So basically, I just talked about that. Basically, there is a common denominator between all these needs in companies. I'm sure that in your company today, or if you're business consultants that provide services to other people, you will see very soon companies complaining about these kind of things, complaining that they have too much data, they cannot store it, their system is too slow. They actually have data, but they don't do anything with it. They lose it. They don't store the web server logs. They don't store the machine sensor data that they have because they have no way to. So people will start more and more often to want to do this kind of thing. This is a customer example that it's actually comes very, very appropriate. Ruckus Wireless, they They provide services where they install networks in events, for instance, like this, the Wi-Fi event could be provided by them. And they want to be able to have data around all of what happens on that event, to see if their service, to see, for instance, if we all have internet, or if by the time that guy number 20 logs into the Wi-Fi, everyone loses Wi-Fi. So they have a bunch of data to analyze, and they want to do that. And they also use, in order to do all of this, they store all the data in Hadoop, and then they send it to Vertica, that blazing fast. Vertica is amazing for columnar database. That thing is blazingly fast. To be able to, on one hand, store the data with low cost, on the other hand, being able to do analysis on it. And they also use that streaming bus, the Apache Kafka project. And PDI, Kettle, didn't used to support in the past connecting to Kafka. These guys implemented the Kafka connector for PDI and donated it to the project. So now, if any of you guys download the Pentaho data integration, you'll see a Kafka connector on the marketplace that was built and submitted by these guys. This is something that the open source projects can give that others don't. A second example is actually one of my favorite ones. There were the Leukemia and Lymphoma Research. It's an organization that fights blood cancer in the UK. A couple of years back, we sell tutorials on our Web Details website. This was like 1 year ago or something. We sell tutorials about how to build dashboards, and we got some guys sending us an email and saying, "Oh, do you guys have discounts for the charity?" Obviously, I'm Portuguese. What would I answer? Of course not. Come on, it's 200 euros. Just buy the damn tutorials. And a couple of days later, one of the guys at our team just asked me, "Did you realize that you just charged 200 euros to a beating blood cancer organization in the UK?" It was a tough day. I felt a little bit dirty. So in order to try to compensate things, we got in touch with those guys, and we did a dashboard implementation, a project for them for free. Well, it's not for free. I can talk about this project in front of people, but what they do is they use Pentaho and gather all the data to do fundraising events and charity events in the UK. They use the entire stack. They get all the data about people that participate. They register in the events. They have a huge event in London, which they call the London Bikeathon, where people donate money and race around London. They have a place in heaven if they want to ride a bike in London. But in the end, they got a huge success. They even got a bunch of awards in this charity-like event. So they were able to beat organizations like Save the Children and UNICEF. So take that, UNICEF. And they also use the same approach as some of the other guys. So they stored all the huge amount of data in Hadoop, and they extract from Hadoop, put it on some place where that thing is relatively faster, and give access not only to internal people, but also to external people, from reports, dashboardings, analysis. ABN AMRO is also another example. They wanted, ABN is one of the largest banks in the Netherlands. They wanted to have a dashboard system to give data to their users, and they wanted something that was so specific in terms of behavior that it just didn't exist. And the fact that Pentaho is a pluggable platform allowed us to implement exactly what they wanted and still take advantage of the platform. And once again, on that case, there was no big data environment. It was a bunch of Postgres databases, single sign-on, multi-tenancy. So basically what we really try to have is a system, and this is a very common requirement, so that people are able to get the data as it's generated get some meaning out of it and give it to whoever consumes the data. Marketing slide. And basically, this slide is basically the summary of what Pentaho does. If you see from bottom to the top is the most classical systems. This is usually the standard billing information, invoices, all of that goes to an ERP system, then goes to an existing BI tool or information tool. And then as the projects grow larger and larger, there are new technology in place, new sources of data. And what Pentaho allows is to basically sit on the middle of all those pieces and connect them so that they can talk together and give the final result to people. The goal is for us to, at a point in time, take one of these pieces out, replace them with a better technology approach, and the overall scenario will still work. Well, slide. And this is something that the other slide talked a lot about getting the data and transforming the data. There's the other part, which is basically putting the data in front of people. There are usually 3 different ways to do that. We either use the standard tools that come out of the box. We use our tool to get in part of a third-party application, and then Pentaho just does the analytics part of it. Imagine an IRP, I don't know, Alfresco currently. He started working with Pentaho so that all the content management is done in Alfresco, and when people want statistics, it's Pentaho that's in there. So Pentaho can be integrated in any application. And then there's a huge customization ability that allows us to do any kind of things we can dream of basically just using standard technology. I think I just said all that. So this is something that that it's extremely important in our stack. Important because it's used a lot. It's the fact that not only people usually start these business analytics projects to get data to use internally, but there comes a point when they want to give access for external people to be able to use that data. Pentaho offers the ability to embed that into a website, an application, so that, for instance, you can have information about your company sales being shown to outside people in a very controlled way, so that people only see the data that you want them to see, because that's crucial, and following all the look and feel and corporate image, the same as the website, for instance. And I guess this is pretty much it. So, just to finalize, what we do is a little sit in the middle of the big data integration tools and the business analytics tools, do the bridge between data and insights. Like I mentioned before, we use a lot of times the word big data because of all the marketing hype associated with it. And even though there are tons of connectors to a bunch of big data technology, actually in a project that we worked on like 4 or 3 years ago, we wrote the Elasticsearch connector for PDI to use in a project in Mozilla, also submitted to the marketplace. But it has connectors to Excel and it has connectors to Kafka. So it goes from one end to the other. And it's aimed to be used not only for the IT people, so that they can control exactly what users see, but also available for the line of business users, the analysts, the real people to be able to get insights. So, and basically trying to adapt to any kind, any data environment, any analytics. I hate these marketing things. So that's it. I'm done, and only 5 minutes after 30 minutes. Questions? No?
Thank you for your presentation. Just one question. How does Pentaho ask these questions about self-service, BI, and these kind of things? What kind of tools provides Pentaho?
So in terms of tools to use, there are basically 3 different kinds of tools. There's the standard reporting, pixel perfect reporting. There's the Pentaho report designer that is...
Oh, I don't mean about reporting. I mean about business or data discovery that the business uses.
So what we do is that we use a term called the governed data discovery. This means that what most enterprises are looking for is not to allow users to just get any data and start playing with it. Because what can happen most of the times is that people interpret the data in wrong ways, and that can be drastic. What we do is in projects like the Streamline Data Refinery, there are specific workflows that are put in place, pre-validated, and accepted by IT and saying, okay, this workflow is safe for people to use, it has auditing, it has all of that, so that through a predefined workflow, they can get that result. It can be as simple as a simple dashboard or something that triggers a complex ETL process to extract data from Hadoop and then deliver data to people. Getting things like predictive, getting the best algorithms, all of that currently, and that won't change a lot, it's part of the data integration part. What happens usually is that there are data analysts that study the data, get the best algorithm, and what then we do is put that in production and make sure that running those algorithms over and over again can connect the dots from end to end.
¿Una pregunta?
Related to that question, because we are now seeing about data discovery tools, tools like Tableau or ClickView. They are now having a lot of development here, not only in Spain but across Europe and the world. Which modules are more suitable, like Tableau or ClickView, for data discovery in Pentaho?
Yeah, in Pentaho, basically we have Analyzer. That is the slice and dice tool that allows you to do that kind of operations. It doesn't aim to be a replacement or a competitor to Tableau, but it's the tool that Pentaho uses to do all that self-service analysis.
Yeah, it's one of the questions everybody asks continually here, about
it's
comparing
Pentaho
with comparing Pentaho last years with business objects, MicroStrategy, now with Tableau, with ClickView.
Yeah, but it's not a fair comparison. They're not on the same space.
Tableau, for instance, doesn't have an ETL tool like Pentaho has, for instance.
Tableau is great. Tableau is a great tool. You can do. It has a great UI. People can get a lot of insights from there. But in terms of connecting to big data.
Okay, so let me tell you that in a few weeks we'll be held in Belgium in Amberes. Pentaho community meetup. So it's one of the most important events for the community of Pentaho here in Europe. Yeah? And beers and this kind of things is already included. Yes, thanks.